went into a CVS pharmacy. Then above the urgent care in the pharmacy, it said wellness in huge bubble letters. That is not wellness. That is literally illness. It's above the urgent care. So if they can define wellness in that way and every other brand can have their own interpretation of it, what does it mean for While on Earth? We've landed on this definition of performance wellness, which is not just the absence of illness, it's the pursuit of reaching your full potential. And that's the mission of While on Earth, is to inspire people to reach their full potential. And it is a high performing mindset, and that's who we are as people and how we've created our brand.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Todd Meleney, co-founder and CEO of While on Earth. In this episode, we talk about reimagining performance footwear and apparel for the modern wellness consumer. Plus, we discuss starting While on Earth alongside elite athletes, lessons learned from building Nobull, and the importance of maintaining a challenger mindset. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is presented by EGYM. EGYM's smart fitness ecosystem is transforming healthcare through exercise. Combining strength equipment with AI-powered software and corporate wellness platform WellPass, it's leading the shift to proactive preventative health. Learn more about EGYM's intelligent workout solutions at egym.com. Hey Todd, welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Excited to be here.
Likewise, I'm excited to chat. I know I kind of got the update on how things are going, and I've been following closely, you could say, with While on Earth. But to kick things off, why don't you give us the quick intro about you, about the brand, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, great. My name is Todd Meleney. I'm co-founder and CEO of performance footwear and apparel brand While on Earth. And I have been in the apparel and footwear industry for most of my career, having started my first apparel brand when I was in college, and then ultimately being the first employee and chief marketing officer at Nobull when we launched in 2015 and exited that business after 10 years to build something new and modern. And While on Earth launched about 12 months ago, and we're having an absolute blast.
Definitely deep in it with Nobull, and we can chat about that a little bit more. But I think as it relates to While on Earth, like the interesting thing is, this is a highly competitive market. Like there's a lot of different apparel, footwear brands, performance. There's kind of, I don't know if you want to say a lot of noise, maybe like lower barrier to entry in terms of like, hey, could we drop merch or start a brand, right? Obviously what you're doing is much different, but what was that insight coming out of Nobull and really being like, hey, I want to get back in the game, and like, this is the white space that we see to be able to do something different?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, footwear and performance footwear is one of the most competitive categories on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And, there's no lack of optionality. I'm not sure too many customers are waking up in the morning saying, geez, I wish I just had more options for sneakers. So if that's the case, you have to be really confident and have a lot of point of view as to why your brand exists and kind of what your reason for being is. And I've loved footwear since I was a teenager. I was, I say a sneakerhead, but I was really more of an aspiring sneakerhead because I couldn't afford it. But I was a basketball player growing up and just loved the culture that was athletic footwear. And having the experience that I did at Nobull, it really gave me a taste of the nuanced distinction between apparel brands and footwear brands and performance footwear versus fashion and all of these different elements. And at Nobull, we started as a training brand, and we were very focused and very specific on CrossFit and, high intensity training. And, after 10 years of building that brand and paying close attention to our competitors and seeing how, Alo launched in yoga and On launched in running, and being, an example of a fitness and wellness enthusiast, I understood that the patterns and behaviors of folks like me had changed quite a bit in that period of time. And, The days of one person hammering themselves in the gym 5, 6 days a week had changed, and the customer was doing running and yoga and weightlifting and having a much more holistic approach to fitness and well-being. And I didn't see a brand that was wrapping their arms around this definition of wellness and saying, we are the athletic footwear brand for you. And we saw it with other CPG categories, whether it was healthy soda or skincare or eyewear or you name it, but we didn't see it in footwear. And there are so many brands that have been built over the last, 15 or so years that have achieved substantial scale. And, we know those success stories like Fiore and Hoka and others, but those are billion-dollar companies now. And we looked at it as we have all of the expertise to build an underdog alternative. And we feel like there's an appetite for that. And that's what we've set out to build.
I think the observation is 100% right. It's a lot of what we think about and talk about in the content on Fitt Insider newsletter with folks that we talk to on the podcast, and really just like yourself, whether it's enthusiasts or operators in different corners of the industry who are all saying a similar thing, which is like, clearly things are shifting. Wellness, if that's even the right word anymore, really, like whatever,
Right.
however you choose to describe it, but just from recovery to training to lifestyle, like all these different things. And but I think really nailing that in terms of, okay, what does the representation execution of a footwear performance apparel brand look like in that space? I know that's like a loaded question, but where do you even kind of like begin saying like, okay, this is how we fit our vision to the observations and trends and like really launch into that way, where it's like Nobull launching into CrossFit and training is like way more direct than this kind of like ambiguous launching into like whatever the future of wellness consumer is.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. And, I think if you close your eyes and picture the word wellness, everybody thinks about like a different version of that. And you see all of these reports out there that this is a $6 billion wellness economy that's bigger than pharmaceuticals and pro sports combined. On one hand, that speaks to opportunity, but it's also so large and so vast that it can be difficult or intimidating to create traction. And that's what we had a lot of success with, being really focused on CrossFit. But we also experienced the challenges of what happens when you do saturate that market and you have to reach from CrossFit to this or to that. And it's really hard to do and it's really expensive. So we wanted to build a brand that spoke a broad and aspirational language that could connect with people no matter where they are on their journey, but also create enough or have enough focus and enough traction that we have a place to start. And with co-founders Matt Fraser and Brooke Wells, who are CrossFit legends, that did give us real authenticity within kind of the more serious, fitness enthusiast. And that was a great place to start. But I do recall this kind of pivotal moment when we were trying to define ourselves and figuring out what was the appropriate definition of our brand. And I went into a CVS pharmacy that's right by my house. And above the urgent care in the pharmacy, it said wellness in huge bubble letters. And I have a photo of it. And I remember stopping in my tracks and being like, that is not wellness. That is literally illness. It's above the urgent care. So if they can define wellness in that way and every other brand can have their own interpretation of it, what does it mean for While on Earth? And we've landed on this definition of performance wellness, which is not just the absence of illness, it's the pursuit of reaching your full potential. And that's the mission of While on Earth, is to inspire people to reach their full potential. And it is a high performing mindset, and that's who we are as people and how we've created our brand. But it also, is a call to action, and aligns with this ethos that time is our most valuable currency. And we feel like the best version of yourself is the happiest version of yourself, which is the healthiest version of yourself. And the foundation of that for us is movement. And that's what our product is created for. It's for movement. And then thinking about that from a positioning perspective was helpful in framing up how we create product, because the product development timeline for performance footwear, it's 18 to 24 months. So it's a long time before you have a completed shoe, but you're working to make sure your brand identity is connected to that in this really symbiotic way. So we started with the question of, how do we want customers to describe Wow on Earth product? We know we believe in community, we believe in content and storytelling, but to grow as a business and to scale, we do not want to be dependent upon advertising or Meta or some of these other channels, because they're really expensive, they're challenging, and they're volatile. And we feel like the most powerful form of, validation is word of mouth. So let's begin with the end in mind. How do we want customers to describe Wow on Earth product? And the adjectives that we came up with were high performing, comfortable, versatile, beautiful, and timeless. And that's kind of been our true north as to, are we creating the right product? Does it meet the needs of the customer and how they're using it? And it's got to perform at, the highest level. And we have athletes that have tested that and continue to. But we also wear this product all the time. Like, I'm in athletic stuff all day long, and I have been for like 15 years. So we want it to look good and feel good in the gym and wherever you go after the gym, whether that's Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or Sweet Green, or you're going away for a long weekend and what are you wearing on the flight? We want you to choose While on Earth because it is high performing, but it's also comfortable and versatile and meets you where you are as a fitness and wellness enthusiast.
You spoke to a couple of these things because, both coming into the conversation and hearing you talk about it, it was like that the positioning definitely makes sense. The area to kind of attack and the white space to fill, and then doing that in a way where, and this might seem naive, right? For someone like you who's so immersed in the actual industry and process, but from the outside, it's like creating kind of that category. Like, where is the room for innovation when you think of, okay, there's like the traditional training shoe. There's obviously like these super running shoes. Now there was minimalist shoes, and then there was super chunky, like the Hoka style shoes. In some ways, like they're creating that category as they go. Did you think of it that way in terms of like materials or design function? You know, obviously we had like the identity part and kind of the performance part there, but like from materials, from look, from design, like then that's that next piece of the execution in terms of like, oh, here's what we can do. Here's how we can stand out. Here's how we can really meet the mark in terms of like, this is what the consumer now feels when they are using the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say one thing that we were sure of from the beginning is that we want to be a footwear first business. And there's so many examples of how hard it is to go from an apparel brand into launching performance footwear, and building the trust there is really, really hard. And it worked to our advantage because we are, footwear people, and we have, experienced product developers with decades of experience. But we wanted to be footwear first. And that actually helped us inform the brief on the apparel side really easily, which is, it's premium fit, premium materials, and minimal branding. And that fits within this timeless aesthetic that we want While on Earth product to look good and not have to be this fast fashion cycle that became like very common in kind of the 2010s. And then on the footwear side, you have to know the materials. And like, our team has 15 years of experience at building out material libraries for what are the items that are going to be lightweight and flexible and durable, and then how do we bring them to life in a shoe. And we have talented designers. We wanted the product to look good in and outside of the gym, but also offer the support and protection, when you're using it in more and high intense places. And the Move trainer is the first example of that. And the response has been absolutely incredible. And we have various other footwear types that we feel like are as good as any footwear in the market that will be coming out, starting in 2026. But we also have to be realistic with who we are and where we are. Like it's not probable. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not probable that we are going to launch the brand with some innovation that has never been used by Nike or Adidas or Puma, and that's going to be the single silver bullet that makes this business successful. Our product has to be exceptional, and we believe that it is, but the truth is, like, all of those brands are making great product, so we have to consider all of the different elements that make us different. And how does product contribute in storytelling and content and our ambassadors and our community and all of these things? Because we can't be Nike or Adidas now, but they can't be us either. And being small is an advantage if you think about it the right way.
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. For sure, that's exactly where I was going to go next, because we talked about like this, the kind of experience, expertise, like having done it before, being in it, identifying the white space, the positioning, the product. And now as you start to get out there into the world, it does become a matter of, okay, what is the distribution? What is the community? How are you leveraging content? Like, what are the channels? Like all the other factors to start checking that box. Like a year in, to your point, like super early, right? All signs pointing in the right direction, like great traction and momentum. Like beyond the kind of product and positioning that we talked about, what do you attribute that traction to, or like it resonating with people and being able to reach them in a way where it's not just dumping a bunch of money like into social platforms and like hoping for the best, essentially?
One of the things that Jed, who is our head of marketing, and Jed came over with me from Nobull, who's director of brand marketing there, who's our VP of marketing at Wild on Earth. One of his favorite sayings is that you have to be interesting to survive. And with that, it's true. Like you have to be bold and you have to have a point of difference and give people a reason to recall who you are and against all of the noise that exists, especially in this category. And we considered that with even just the name that we picked. Wild on Earth is not, a traditional brand name per se. We received feedback, it's too long, there's too many syllables, there's all this stuff. And I couldn't stop thinking about it after we talked about it. And that recall and that identification with the meaning, which is time is our most valuable currency, and how we use it shapes where we go, what we do, and who we become. While on Earth has roots. And we really do believe that's been a differentiator for us. And the one thing that we know about movement and fitness is that when you're practicing it, there are chemical endorphins that are released in your brain that make you feel good and make you want to continue to do that. And our product lives in that moment. Your identity is in not just what you're doing, but what you're wearing and how you feel and how you look. And if we can live at this intersection of that, moment, we feel like we've got a chance. And that's what we've been really focused on, is being authentic and organic within these spaces. And we have a wellness pro community, which I hope people will go sign up for, which offers incentives and access and opportunities for wellness professionals, trainers and others. And we've got over 500 members of that program already. And they're the ones that are truly changing lives. I'm in the office making shoes. It's the people that are out there one-on-one, educating others and training others and creating communities that we want to be a part of. And we feel like if we can be a part of all of the great things that are happening in this, moment in time, then we at least have a chance and we're giving the customer a choice.
We haven't talked about this, but when, we first met and ultimately Fit Capital invested in the brand, we were super excited about the vision and that opportunity in white space that we talked a bunch about. And it didn't click at the time. I have thought of it since, but I haven't shared it with you, that talking about like this standing out and like obviously a crowded space. Another one is nutrition and supplements, and what Seed Health has been able to do in terms of like really unique storytelling and branding, really unique content, different positioning. Like, yes, they're doing supplements, but they have layers of whether it's science or biotech and like other things going on. It's like While on Earth has that vibe slash opportunity where it's like, yes, it's obviously footwear and apparel, but it's kind of different in that it has layers to it and it's not your traditional. So I don't know if you internally thought of that or maybe recognize it. You're nodding your head as I kind of say it, but like it's things like that where I get excited about like, oh, this is different and I can see how it can continue to grow into all these kind of different areas in a way that like a more sterile traditional, brand maybe doesn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm flattered that you've identified that too. Um, and I think the work that Fit Insider has done in sharing information, that some of it is your own and some of it is consolidating it from other, validated sources, is extremely educational. Not just for me as a company founder, but there it's information that we also try to share or adopt in our own way. And we have this series called Microdosing Fitness. And they're just like fact based tips that, if put into practice, can improve your life. And we have found them to be really eye opening when we identify them ourselves as fitness junkies, but then also create this like social virality that we love. And like, for example, one that comes to mind is we did a microdosing fitness, and I think it said 20 minutes of physical activity, 3 days a week can have a 42% reduction in anxiety and depression. Don't quote me on those exact stats, but it is something similar to that. And we created a graphic of an athlete who was recovering in a sauna, and we put, that stat on the content. And it had something like 700 shares on Instagram. And this is like within a few months of us launching. That was a lot for us because we looked at it and we're like, okay, 700 people read it, found it powerful, shared it to presumably 700 more people. And all of these people have been educated on something that maybe they weren't totally aware of. And instead of sitting on the couch, they decided to go for a walk or take the stairs when they went into their office. And that micro dosing of fitness, compounding in small habits over a long period of time, can change people's lives. And that's not about selling shoes, although we hope they remember that they learned it from us. That's not the point. It's that like it gives us a true north on like what do we have to offer. And we've even done that with some of our SMS campaigns that we've run, which is like, I think it was Mental Health Awareness Day, or maybe it was Election Day, which actually is next week, but it was Election Day last year. We sent out an SMS to our full subscriber base with just breathwork tactics to reduce stress on one of the most stressful days of the year. And the amount of people that responded to that and were like, wow, thank you, was unbelievable. And there wasn't any direct response marketing impact to that. We were doing it because we have, you know, X thousands of people in our database. We have access to this information. And if you do the 3-3-3 breathing technique, you're probably going to feel better. And sometimes you just need that reminder. And that's just kind of an effort of our brand to, have a positive impact.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff that can be done like that. And really, I think a lot of brands can be doing more of in terms of like education, not just content, but like really supporting that customer in like their various pursuits. And obviously wellness, this nebulous like everything is wellness. Like there's all kinds of different avenues that can end up going.
They can, but and I want to touch on that because I have experience with it, and that was part of the inspiration behind wanting to leave and creating something that was fresh and different. But the bigger the business gets, the more bound you are by the like measurable KPIs and performance. And I was responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and more of my time was dedicated to sharing like safe, predictable KPIs that were going to like meet this revenue plan. And my response was, these are going, predictable habits are going to create predictable results. The reason we got here is because we were building a brand that had substance and had meaning, and that creates exponential growth if you can lock in and focus on that. And there's not this one-to-one relationship between I spent this and I made that. It's a little bit more ambiguous than that, but the results stand for themselves. And that's a big part of what we believe in the brand that we're creating, which is it's not all measurable, and that's scary. But if you commit to it consistently for a long period of time, the results stand out.
Yeah, that's part of the exciting thing about being like at the early stage, start something new and, figuring that out. It's another thing. And it's still too early for this to be relevant, but I'm sure you think about it. And as you continue to grow, it's like maintaining that challenger brand, upstart kind of risk taking DNA. So you don't get in that position where it's like, oh, we have to do this to get that outcome. It's like, no, we have to experiment. We have to take risks. Like we have to do new things to continue like keeping that, yeah, just energy overall.
One of the big lessons I had coming out of Nobull, and we did some amazing things there. I'm super proud of the journey that me and my team had, but I think there was this pressure to continue to top what we had done in the past. And it was the next partnership or the next campaign or the next launch. And ultimately, I think we actually lost some authenticity in the process because we were trying to be bigger than we were, and growth was so visible and so um, kind of dominant in our presentation, whether it was the title sponsorship of the CrossFit Games or the title sponsorship of the NFL Combine. And I did those deals, and I worked on them. I know how much went into them and how remarkable they were in their presentation at the time. But one of the things that we talk about it while on earth is let's be really good at being small, and even when we're big, let's be really good at being small, and let's build a global brand that has a local feel, and the examples that I'll point to, two of them, one is Trader Joe's. It's this massive, incredible, retailer that has locations all over the country, I believe. But you walk into each one of them and they're actually small and fairly intimate. And they have like hand painted murals of the town that they're in on the wall. And like, what a really intentional effort at staying true to who they wanted to be at the beginning. And I'm constantly reminded of that. And then the other is Yeti. And Yeti is a multi-billion-dollar company now. But when they show up at, motocross or, whatever local event, they're pretty much in like a 10 by 10 or like a 20 by 20. And they're not trying to be anybody but themselves. And, if you know exactly who you are and why you exist, like it's okay to just be great at being that. And that's something that I hope we'll maintain for a really long time as we, try to build something that's timeless.
As we get towards the end of the conversation, you kind of earlier teased, maybe some new footwear categories coming next year. Is there anything else that's like top of mind or we should look out for, whether that's like collabs, product drops, new launches, like anything that you're working on or maybe excited about?
Yeah, so I'm so excited about the product we have coming, and that's been the biggest investment we've made as a company. We've had a seed round of investment, and we're putting that to work on product innovation to demonstrate the scale and opportunity of the business. And so far, we have the Move Trainer, which we've talked about. It's been incredible. We'll launch running in the first half of next year, and we have multiple running products that we've been working on for almost 2 years now. And I think of running as like the original form of fitness. and probably the most inclusive version. And we see that with so many communal run clubs and, environments that are happening there. And you can use that in high rocks or, road running or traditional, run clubs and that sort of things, which will be phenomenal. And we'll have a kind of a vast offering there. But then also, Christian McCaffrey, who's a co-founder and investor in the business, who we've been working a lot with throughout this year. And he also is just an incredible personification of the brand. And yes, he's an NFL icon and one of the best players in the world. But, at the time that I met with him for the first time, he was also on the cover of Men's Health magazine and on the cover of Madden video game. So it was like this intersection of fitness and health and wellness and culture, which was so rare and unique for him to want to step away from Nike, who he had been with, to invest in us and be a part of it. And he's had some incredible vision for new product that we'll be launching next year with CMC. So we'll have some incredible product for him. And, he's experienced a lot in his career. Like, he's had all of the highs and the successes that you can imagine, but he's also had challenges to overcome with injuries and other things. And he's educated us a lot on some of the reasons he feels like that's happened, and how can we create some product that maybe is different than what's in the market and also meets the needs of how he trains. And we feel like if it works for Christian, it's probably going to work great for you and me.
Yeah, he's a absolute specimen in, of fitness and performance and just like all around success. But like you said, no shortage of like just like challenges, injuries, like different setbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes to life. The one thing, and I meant to ask about this earlier, just given the relationship with Matt and Brooke and now Christian, how much of a role do you anticipate athletes, whether they're, more mainstream or maybe more niche, do you anticipate playing in the brand? And it's like, obviously it's not all going to be this co-founder level or hands in the dirt, like making product essentially, or influencing product. But that is basically right now where every kind of activewear brand is like, hey, what is our, are we going this path with like maybe NBA players and it's more fashion? Are we going this route with performance? Like, there's clearly this push to incorporate one, more guys, and two, athletes. And so just thinking about how that fits into where you're going, maybe what does that look like and how big of a role will it play?
It will be a big part of it, and we do feel like with Brooke, with Matt and Christian, we have these beacons of expertise and awareness that most brands don't have, period. Never mind brands that are as young as we are. And we would be foolish to not to take advantage of what they bring, because not only have they been wearing this product longer and for more hours than almost anyone on the planet. But if they're bought in and they're excited and they can influence it, then that permeates their own communities. And that is a big point of difference that we committed to and I've believed in for a long time, is the athlete. And they have genuine, you know, fans. It's not a transactional relationship. It's people that have followed them for their whole careers, or, many years at least. And they want them to succeed and for them to know that they're genuinely a part of building something and they benefit from the success. And we feel like that's a competitive advantage for us. And, you know, that gives us the confidence that we're going to be making product that's going to work for many other great athletes too. And, we're in no rush. We feel great about who we have now and where we're going, but I would expect that to be part of Wild on Earth's future for a long time.
And we'll get you out of here on this. For folks that are listening, follow along, want to learn more, is there anywhere you point them, anything to promote, or yeah, tell us about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, check out wildonearth.co, and our Instagram is also Wild on Earth. And we've got some incredible new product launching this November and holiday season, which I hope you'll check out, and then follow along for the ride as we try to build something that's different and special in this space, over the following years.
Perfect. We'll get everything linked up in the show notes here, make it easy to find. And Todd, yeah, super excited to share the conversation. Thanks for joining us today.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fit.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fit.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.